Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the Middle Ground podcast. This is exciting. This first episode will be very much me going through my story, my journey, how I ended up where I am, and maybe the lessons you can learn from me. So let's dive straight in. I'm not quite sure what this podcast is going to be, by the way. It will be me talking to my friends, people I find interesting, people that are leaders in the industry, maybe, hopefully. It will also be a lot of me talking on my own, rambling, sharing insights, things that I'm interested in, things that I've learned. So I hope you enjoy it. But if we're going to get going. I've got my coffee, I've got my water. We're going to dive into my journey. Let me relive my traumatic teenage years. So, as a kid, I was always very active. I played a lot of sport. If there was a team, I was in it. Except if it was football, because football was, and will be forever shit. So I was never too focused on my body as a kid. It was always kind of more on performance, more on me being good at the sports I played. That's what I enjoyed to do. I was athletic, and I didn't particularly care for quite a while about how I looked. It wasn't anything that crossed my mind, right? You're 8, 9, 10. You don't really think about how you look. Especially as a guy, I think that kind of comes a little bit later. And I wasn't ever overweight either. I don't think I was ever a particularly overweight kid. I was just a bigger guy. I had that frame, always played rugby, so I had that bigger frame, which translated into the sports I played. I didn't look how I wanted to for quite a while. I think I had this idea of, like a lot of young guys do, kind of what a man looks like, what a adult looks like, what a strong, you see it in media. It's only inflated over the years with what is deemed an acceptable physique, right? But I don't think I was ever fully content in how I looked. I think I always wanted to be a little bit better, but it wasn't too much of a concern until I went to secondary school, got into the later years, so that, that 15, 16. And then I remember trying to lose weight. I remember someone saying something to me in a changing room. It was nothing super mean. He was actually kind of a friend of mine. And he said, I can't fully remember what it was, but it was something about rolls or boobs or something. And I just have a big chest, naturally. I have quite a muscular chest, I suppose. So I don't even think I had man boobs. I just think I had a bigger chest. And I wasn't, again, particularly overweight or fat at all. I just had a little bit of extra fat. I was a rugby player, right? So that hit really hard. I think as I was getting to that stage of it being more of an issue, me worrying about my body a little bit more, me not being as comfortable in my body. And it sparked me to want to change. So what I did was go on fad diets, which is the best thing you can possibly do in any of those situations, right? It's an amazing thing to do. I remember trying the military diet, which was a very strict meal plan with a lot of crackers and not a lot of real food. I remember it being a night that I was going to some friends to chill, to have a quote-unquote party, right? And I brought my food in a Tupperware and then ate it while they ate Domino's pizza, and I was probably 14, and that's rough. That's rough. Looking back on that, fucking hell, what was I doing? Dreadful stuff, that. And then I kind of found tracking calories at about 16. I was playing rugby at the time. I remember just wanting to slim down a little bit, look a little bit leaner, and I found calorie tracking, and it was brilliant, actually. I had quite a healthy relationship with it at the start. I lost the weight that I wanted to lose, and I stopped. And that was quite sustainable for me. The issue came when I kept going. I went 17, went to college. Throughout that summer, I just kept... I was getting the positive reinforcement from losing weight. People around you, you look so much better. You look good. All of this kind of stuff, and it kind of lights that fire to keep going. Which is exactly what I did. I kept going, and I went, and I went, and I went, and I went. And it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. So my first year of college, I was, overtraining like fuck. It was dreadful. I remember, so I played for the college basketball team, and I remember early Monday morning was basketball training. I would wake up, I would go to college, I would get like an hour in the gym lifting and that kind of thing. And I would then go to basketball practice. And I wasn't eating a lot at the time either. I was eating severely under what I should have been eating. So throughout the first year of college, sorry, I have got notes here because it's a long story and I want to make sure it's right. Throughout my first year of college, I went vegan as well. And I lost a lot of weight. And I developed what you would call an eating disorder. It started off as orthorexia and then transitioned to borderline anorexia, I believe. Again, none of this has ever been diagnosed by a doctor, but this is from my perspective, how I saw it, how I see it now in the past. I have a much clearer vision of what happened now that it's happened, rather than when I was in the middle of it, when I was in denial of it all. But anyway, I was in college, I was under eating, I was overtraining, and I kept losing weight, and it was all right, really. It was, I don't know, why did I say it was all right? It was fucking dreadful. It was really quite dreadful. I lost a lot of friends. I was anxious. I was self-conscious. And my strength and athleticism, which are things that I massively prided myself on, went to the wayside. They fell apart. And I kind of lost a lot of my identity because I was tying so much of my current identity into being lean, quote unquote, but I'd lost so much muscle at this point. I wasn't even lean. I was just like skeleton-like. I was ghostly. I was ghastly. It was not a nice place to be. It was not a nice place to be. And then lockdown happened. Lucky me, which made everything so much worse because all of a sudden my obsession for control around my food, around my situation, was able to be realized more because I had control of everything. And I'd lost any contact with my friends, with the outside world, that kind of thing. So I was just with my parents. And I had full control over everything I ate. I was still vegan. And it just went downhill and downhill and down. Kept losing weight. And then so that happened halfway through the first year. Lockdown happened halfway through the first year. And I kept losing weight. I believe at my lowest weight, I was 71 kilos. I went around that. Maybe I touched the 60s. I can't remember. Bear in mind, I'm 6'2", and right now I am 92 kilos, 92, 93. And I'm not lean, but I'm lean. I can sit around 100 if I wanted to, right? So that just gives you an insight. That's about 30 kilos, 20 to 30 kilos of weight that I had not lost because I didn't go from that weight down, but that I have on myself now, right? And the second year, we kind of went back into college after lockdown, and I just kept going. I kept going with the food and kept restricting and kept over-exercising. I would park my car 3 miles away from the college so that I could walk 3 miles to college and 3 miles back just so I could get my steps in. And I'd walk back to my car at lunchtime. So there was a longer route to college, and there was a longer route and a shorter route, and I'd always take the longer route. And then at lunch, I'd take the short route and go to my car and sit in it and eat lunch because I didn't want people to watch me eat. That was a big thing. I hated people watching how I acted around food and watching me interact with food. And I'd go and I'd just eat like a big thing of green. It was just broccoli, and it was like protein pasta, and it was dreadful. It was really dreadful. There's a lot of things that I look back, meals and foods and things that now have a very unpleasant place in my heart because of how much I ate of them. Luckily, most of it's been, recovered, not there. Like, I ate a lot of broccoli. I still eat broccoli, right? But there's some things that I just don't think I can ever eat again because I just ate so much of them in such an unhealthy way, and my farts fucking stank. Ask any of my friends. The few that I had when I was going through this, and my farts absolutely hooned. It was green. It smelled like green. If you can imagine the smell of green, it smelled like green. Anyway, let's move on. I went to the hospital at one point, or maybe not a hospital, but a doctor's surgery, and talked to them. It was with my mum. Obviously, my parents were worried about me through all of this. I just didn't have the acknowledgement of it. And we went, and they told me that I wasn't light enough to be anorexic, so they sent me away. And that's something I'm really passionate about now, is I think you should, you don't have to be a certain weight to have an eating disorder. It's really rough for a lot of people to kind of be denied this, and I know it happens in all aspects of mental health, whether it's depression, anxiety, ADHD, autism, all of these things. If you don't fit the carbon copy description of it, then it can be quite demoralizing for someone to tell you that you don't have it when you identify with it, and that can be really rough. And it was quite rough for me because I was sent away because I wasn't light enough, because I was, 70 kilos, 6'2". You're not technically anorexic. Brilliant. Go away. That was more or less my experience with healthcare in my years of struggle, right? Let's move on. I finished school. I started working. I was still throughout all of this super out of control around food, but I had to be in control of it all. Do you know what I mean? My obsession was with being in control of everything. And I was just chronically undereating for many years. And I left school and I started working. Not going to name companies, but I started working. And then over that summer, I decided that I was going to go traveling. So I spent 6 weeks in the Canary Islands, which was equally the best thing I've ever done. Hindsight, best thing I've ever done. At the time, worst thing I'd ever done. Because I learned so much. I was pushed out my comfort zone so much. I grew so much. But it was the hardest thing I had to do, I'd ever done. Because I went from... COVID made me really attached to home and really anxious when I wasn't home. And I threw myself into a different country where I didn't speak the language and I didn't know anyone. And I had to get by for 6 weeks. And it was hell on earth. It was amazing, but it was hell on earth. I was so lonely. I was so afraid. I was so anxious. And I spent so much time just walking about with my headphones in, not talking to anyone, ignoring people, being in hostels where everyone's doing things and just laying on my bed. I remember the second week, I started looking for flights home. I was on the phone to my mum crying. It was quite bad, but I pushed through it and I came out the other side. 6 weeks, came back, and I was a much more developed person for it. And it's one of the most shaping things I've ever done. One of the most shaping experiences I've ever had. And I wouldn't change it for the world now, right? I wouldn't change it for the world. But at the time, it was really fucking hard. So, important note on the Canary Islands. When I was there, I started eating meat again. And that was the genesis for me eating meat again. I haven't stopped since. And that was one of the best decisions I've made as well. Because I had this... When you have an eating disorder, you're overly restrictive anyway. And then you put an overly restrictive diet on that, like veganism, and you end up with nothing that you can eat. And you end up with this over focus on control because it's masked. You go, I'm not anorexic, I'm not orthorexic, I'm just a vegan. I've just got to make sure that there's no plant products in my food. And that focus on ingredients then focuses into, right, well, what's healthy and, what are the calories in this, and you just get overly consumed with everything. And for me, I'm not saying you can't do it. I have friends that do it very healthily. They're incredible people. For me, not in a million years would you see me back there. Dreadful. I will eat meat till the day that I die. If it can be lab grown, brilliant. Not a problem at all. Lab grown, don't kill an animal, happy guy. But until that day, I will continue to eat meat because I like it. Anyway, so I came back from the Canaries, and the next couple of years entailed me battling this eating disorder. I, throughout my years, had struggled with orthorexia, anorexia, and then binge eating, and then bulimia. The bulimia one is a very interesting one, and let me just check if I don't have anything to say before I dive into it, because I will go quite deep. So, Cool. So, let me dive into bulimia very quickly. So I struggled with binge eating. I was in a binge restrict cycle that wasn't matters of months. It wasn't restrict for a month, binge for a few weeks. It was a daily binge restrict cycle where it was binge in the morning, restrict for the rest of the day, not eat anything, wake up the next morning ravenously hungry, so I'd binge. And that was my binge restrict cycle, and I remember it being so painful. It was in the summer. I don't know what year. But it was really hard, and it was a really dreadful experience. And then the bulimia came when I discovered that, well, if you binge and then you make yourself sick, then you don't have to deal with the consequences. And for a long time, I just kidded myself that I didn't have it. I would just binge and then make myself sick and then tell myself, well, it's not bulimia, is it? Like, it's just science, really. I'm just making myself sick. If I make myself sick, then I have to deal with the consequences. So it's just smart. It's a smart move, really. It's not an eating disorder. It's a smart move. And that is where that started. And that was a really tough one because all along the way, I knew I'd had these eating disorders and I had to acknowledge them. And once I acknowledged them, they all got better, generally. I spoke about them, I thought about them, and I had strategies to overcome them. And the bulimia one was one that I just didn't think I had for a long time. I just denied the fact that I had it. And I did have it. And then I acknowledged it and said from a day, I'm not going to make myself sick again. And I didn't, and I haven't since. So the importance of acknowledging your issues and the things that you're struggling with is absolutely massive, especially in eating disorders, because you can't help yourself if you're not acknowledging the fact that you have a problem. You have to acknowledge the fact that you have a problem in order to address it. So those are the multitude of eating disorders that I've struggled with over the years that I have encountered. And none of them are particularly nice. I was very unhappy for a long time. Again, with how I looked and felt. I wanted to change, but I didn't know what I needed to change. Bosh, killed that. I wanted to change. I didn't know what I needed to change. I wanted to look better, but in my head, the only way to look better was to lose fat. There was nowhere in my head where I thought, let me just increase my calories to maintenance or surplus and train really hard and build that muscle and then be able to reveal the muscle. It was just, well, no, you don't look good enough because you haven't lost enough fat yet. That was the only thing that kind of clicked in my brain, was that that's the thing I have control over. That's the thing I need to do. I need to lose fat. That's all there. That's all I can do. And I kept doing it, and I kept doing it, and I wondered why I wasn't feeling any better and why I wasn't looking any better. And it was dreadful. I've got some bad photos from that time. I was training consistently through all of it, not seeing a lot of progress for a lot of it. I had this weird physique. It was a very weird physique. It wasn't skinny fat, because I wasn't fat, but it was just underweight with muscle and then fat in strange places. Looking back, it was a very weird physique. Obviously, at the time, it was just a frustrating thing to have. But to be at the point where I'm at now in a physique that I'm very comfortable with, that I can maintain, that I'm very proud of, looking back, it was quite a weird place to be in, because I just didn't know what I needed to do to improve, to make my physique something I was happy with. I just thought I had to lose fat, and it was not a nice place to be. There's a lot of things you can do to change your physique. Losing fat is just one of them. For the next few years, travelled and worked intermittently. So I'd work for a few months, and then I'd travel for a little bit, and then I'd work for a few months and travel for a few bit. Saw a few amazing countries. I did the whole of Portugal in like 9 days. I travelled Europe. I went to 9 countries in 4 weeks, which was pretty impressive. And I saw a few places. I had a few great times. But somehow, over the course of these years, I was slowly fixing my relationship to food, but I was still struggling. And I got probably the longest term job I've had other than coaching was working in a refinery. And that routine and structure helped me gain some control over my eating, but it was also some really bad times. I worked in the kitchen in a refinery, so I had access to a lot of food, and there were a lot of binges at work, which is, again, not a nice place to be. Really not a nice thing to have. To have to restrict binges, or not restrict, but have to fight urges to binge while you're at work and surrounded by food is a really difficult thing to do. So even working there with the structure and routine, and while I was, getting my PT qualification and understanding more about nutrition and listening to podcasts about it all and this kind of thing, I was still fighting it, and it was really tough. But that routine and structure definitely helped me somewhat. Gained some more control over my body. Definitely gained a lot of discipline. I had to train after work every day. That was rough. So it did help. But it definitely did bring its own challenges, its own unique challenges. Then, I decided, consciously or not, I can't quite remember, that I should take a break from thinking about fat loss. I'd never done a structured bulk. I still never have done a structured bulk, really. But I took the active effort to go, you know what? Not going to think about fat loss. Not going to stress myself out. And I'm just going to try not to overthink about food, stress food, track food. I'm just going to let my body do what it wants to do. I'm going to keep training. I'm going to take my foot off the gas. I'm going to eat, and I'm going to see what happens to my weight. And funnily enough, that's the best thing I've ever done. If you're struggling with something, leaning into it doesn't help. You have to lean into the thing that scares you. With stuff like eating disorders, for me at least, again, this is very unique advice. Some people ask me things about binge eating and overcoming these things, and I realised that I've got very little advice to give because I kind of fumbled my way through it. I didn't have any guidance. I didn't have a therapist. I didn't have really anyone to talk to about eating disorders. There was nothing I really had other than trial and error in myself. For me, it was really important to lean into the things that I was afraid of, and to me, not tracking my food was fucking terrifying. Not knowing what I was putting into my body was absolutely terrifying. So I knew I had to do it because it taught me that comfort, that middle ground, that intuitiveness. Again, I had weight to put on. I had wiggle room there. So I thought, you know what, if I put on, 5-10 kilos, it's not going to be the end of the world. I can always lose it again. Don't stress it. Don't stress it. So that's what I did. And I stopped tracking my food. And I started eating a little bit more intuitively, obviously, still thinking about protein and using all the knowledge I'd gained about nutrition. But the main focus was on healing my relationship to food. And it is one of the most impactful things I've ever done for my relationship to food, if not the most impactful. And eventually, I came out the other side and the noise got quieter. And for years, probably up until about a year and a half ago, I'd say, maybe 2 years ago, I'd always say, when people talk about eating disorders, I say, the noise gets quieter, but it never really goes away. And I really believed that. And to some degree, I still do. But for where I'm at now, that voice is so quiet. And it has I have another very loud voice, which is the voice of reason and the voice of, science and the voice of, not going back to where I was. That essentially the voice is gone. And I want to kind of just give that little tidbit of information for anyone that is still stuck and that voice is still loud. That disordered voice is really shouting. And I know that it does, because this is exactly what I've been through. That it can really help to know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is something there that can be achieved where that voice is essentially non-existent. Because to me, the thought that voice would never go away was terrifying. And I've gotten to a point now where it essentially, more or less, has gone away. So I learned more about training and nutrition. That massively helped me break the beliefs that fad diets had taught me, and Instagram and shitfluencers and all of that kind of thing had kind of forced upon me. Because I was taking in so much of that content, I internalized so much of that knowledge as things that were true. And I had even if I wasn't binge eating and stuff, I still had quite disordered eating behaviors. Like, I still used to get afraid when people, when the offer of food that wasn't like nutritious came about, or drinks came out. And again, none of that's a thing now. I can enjoy my social life. I can do all these things. I can go and have a beer. And there's no voice. Sometimes the voice pipes up, but you have the opposite voice now. You have the other angel. You have the angel on your shoulder to the devil, where it basically tells it to shut the fuck up, and that it's not useful. So definitely my most progress has been in the last 2 years. Not just my most physical progress, definitely as well, but my most physical, mental progress, relationship to food progress has been in the last 2 years, year and a half, to get to a point where I am now. And now I feel fully in control of my eating habits, and I have full control of fat loss. I can enter a deficit happily and not have a disordered behavior around it. I train consistently, although training was never really my issue. I can train consistently without worrying about overdoing it, I suppose. And I can maintain weight pretty easily. I suppose there's not really too much stress that goes into it anymore. So there's a light, basically, is what I'm trying to say. I can enjoy social occasions, and I love training, which is massive. And there's a little metaphor that I like to use. Metaphor, good English, metaphor, which is that you can't build a greenhouse out of red bricks. And I think I came up with this. If I didn't, I apologize to anyone that did. But I haven't heard it anywhere, and I was very proud of it when I came up with it. So it's essentially highlighting that you can't build a body that you love from a place of hate, right? Is the way that it is the thing that it's portraying. So if I asked you to build a greenhouse and you built it out of red bricks, yeah, you could paint them green, but that facade would wear away, and you would see that it was actually a house made of red bricks. Whereas if you build a house out of green bricks, there's no facade there. That is the house. That's what you want. Now the greenhouse is the body that you love. It's the body that you're proud of, the body that supports you and your goals. And the red house is a body that you build from a place of hate. Now, if you want a body that you love, you have to build it from a place of love. You can't build it from a place of hate. That's the way I think about it. If you build a body that you love from a place of hate, building a greenhouse out of red bricks, the facade's going to wear away. You're going to know inside that the house is made of red bricks, that you don't love your body. To other people, look how amazing his physique is. It's brilliant. It's incredible what they've been able to do. But you know that you're not proud of it because you don't love it, because you haven't built it from a place of love. And that is something that took me years to realize. And now the way that I think about training and nutrition and all of this is from a deep place of love and respect and acceptance of who I am and what my body is, and that my body is just a reflection of my actions. Massive. Absolutely massive. And I couldn't have that as a bigger, more important thing than if you can do anything, if you take anything from this, build your body and your mind from a place of love and not from a place of hate, because you won't enjoy it when you get to the destination. And now I started coaching people. I started coaching people a year and a half ago. It's the best job I've ever had. It's the longest I've ever stayed in a job. It's the most rewarding thing I've ever done. And I fucking love it. And it's sick. I love everyone I work with. It's exciting when I get to work with new people and encounter new problems and find new solutions and ask new questions. It's such a brilliant job. And I love it with all my heart to be able to help people through, some people through similar things that I experienced, and some people through completely different things. It's a varied job, and it's a thing that I wouldn't change for the world, and I don't plan to anytime soon. But only through going through what I went through was I able to come out the other side and realize that that's what I wanted to do. I never knew what I wanted to do. I had no, I didn't want to be an astronaut or a firefighter or anything. I had no massive goals in terms of career. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And that traveling and healing my own relationship with the food and all of that kind of stuff helped me figure out that actually I think I want to help people. I like coming home at the end of the day. Not that I work from home, but I like finishing work at the end of the day and knowing that every piece of effort I've put into that day is to directly help someone in something that they're struggling with. And you get those messages from clients, and it's just the best job ever. I'll stop ranting, but it's the best job in the world. And I think that more people should commit to performance goals instead of physique goals. That's huge. If you have an outcome that is very trackable and measurable, I want to run a marathon, I want to compete in this event, I want to lift X amount of weight, rather than I want to look better, I want to have abs. You will chase those physique goals or those arbitrary goals, and you keep pushing the goal further away. You keep raising the bar. Whereas with those outcome goals, those performance goals, yeah, you definitely have, to some degree, the ability to raise the bar and change the goalposts, but it's much harder because you know in your head that I wanted to get 150 kilo back squat or whatever. You hit that, yeah, you push the goal further away, but you're going to be happy. Whereas I want to look better. It's such a arbitrary goal, not measurable, that you never know when you've got there, and you can't really be happy along the way. So have a fucking performance goal, whatever it is. Please have some sort of performance goal. It's okay to have physique goals. If you want bigger shoulders, sick, go for it, mate. But have a performance goal that ties into that you can track and measure and be happy when you get there. I've personally got some big performance goals that are coming up soon that I haven't actually told anyone about, apart from people quite close to me. So those will be getting announced soonish, I imagine. So that's exciting. So stay tuned for that, because you guys will probably hear it first, if not on my email list. So if you're not on my email list, sign up to my email list. It's in the bio on my Instagram. So I think that's about it. There's a few things that I want to wrap up, which is essentially why I'm here, what this is. So, like I said at the beginning, this podcast is anything I want it to be. And if you don't like it, you can fuck off. Because it's my podcast. I'll do what I want to do with it. My camera's just died, which isn't good. I think it got too hot. So yeah, this podcast is what I want it to be. It will be me talking to friends. It will be me sitting with myself. It will be me sharing ideas and thoughts that I find interesting. And it will be nothing too serious and bro-y. That's my hope for it, at least. I don't want this to turn into a brocast. There will be things about personal development and self-development, but only in ways that you can apply to your own life. Nothing too crazy. So I'm going to wrap this up with saying thank you for listening to the first episode of the Middle Ground podcast. I'm so happy with that name. I think it's sick. There will be a lot of solo episodes because I've quite enjoyed this. There will also be episodes with people, me talking to people. So follow along. Leave a review. Leave a rating. I haven't done a spiel like this before. Subscribe to the podcast. Subscribe to the YouTube. Follow me on Instagram, Jude Venn Coaching. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And I hope you got something from this. If you could take away one thing, it'd be that you have to build a body that you love from a place of love, and you can't build it from a place of hate, because you will know that you don't like the body that you're in. Other people might not. Other people might see an incredible physique and go, wow, they must love the body that they're in. But you will know that you have built your greenhouse out of red bricks. That facade will wear away. So why not save yourself the fucking energy and build a greenhouse out of green bricks? Don't complicate it. Keep it simple. Love you all very much. I'm going to go check on my camera and see if it's dead or not, because it got very hot during that. Peace out. Thank you for listening to episode 1 of The Middle Ground, and I will speak to you all very soon.